Today on FIT TV, you will hear about a daughter trying to keep her father involved with her, and the father desperately doing the same, while the chaotic New York State family court systematically tries to remove one from the other. This case should be a demonstration for the courts, and John Q. Public out there has to see this so he knows what to expect. This is a very lunatic type situation, and Gary Treistman is here to tell us a story. All right, just a quick rundown as to what happened to you, if you could do it in a minute or two.
Well, you mean from the very start, or?
Well, no, you don't have to go too far back.
Well, basically, I raised my child from birth till the age of 7.5, daily with her all the time. We had great, beautiful times together. We'd go places, we'd go on vacations, we'd go swimming. We did everything that the Hudson Valley had to offer. And we loved each other very, very much. And we had an affinity that was inseparable. Then I began to have a breakout with my now ex, Suzanne, and she filed for custody without telling me. She just kind of did it without letting me know she was going to. I always tried to...
Was she, by the way, if I can interrupt you, was she jealous at any point about that relationship that you had with her?
Yes, she was. She was quite jealous. My daughter and I, we had a simpatico, and my daughter always was like joyful and enthusiastic and happy with me. And although she loved her mother, and her mother loves her, that joie de vivre, that essence of joy and happiness didn't quite exhibit itself, and I could sense a jealousy there, no question about it.
Go ahead, continue with the story about where you were.
Okay, well, like I said, I always like to communicate, but Suzanne, she did not want to communicate with me apparently, because without telling me, she went right to the family courts, filed for custody, and the courts granted her what they call temporary custody. It's kind of funny to call it temporary custody, because that usually it almost is like a prophecy in the making. Whoever they give temporary custody to
gets the custody.
Fairly much,
right,
yeah. I
right.
mean, because one thing leads to another. What they call temporary is not temporary at all. I mean, the temporary has gone on for 2 years, maybe 2.5 years. And then eventually it becomes reality. So what happened then was, shortly thereafter, they put me out of my daughter's life, essentially. They made me see her only 1 hour every week.
How would you describe how that manifested, your daughter's manifestations were when that happened?
Oh, she was very, very recalcitrant. She was very boisterous and loud and screaming. She used to have fights with her mother. Her mother couldn't control her. She had never been like that before. But as soon as I was ripped from her life, and it was more than a couple weeks, she became unmanageable to Suzanne.
Doesn't it shock you that the system would not have any kind of reason in that regard concerning the attachment that a parent and a child may have?
Yeah, I mean, it's so backwards. It's supposed to be the best interest of the child. We were living in the same building together at the time this happened. We were actually separated, but we were still getting along. When she filed for custody, she said, okay, I'm now leaving with the child. And I said, well, what are you talking about? She's been living here for over a year. I mean, we want to settle down, have a little continuity. You know, you don't want to quickly just bring her up and bring her somewhere else where she doesn't even know she is.
Right.
And she says, I don't care, I got to get her away from you, I can't take this anymore. And I said, my goodness, I don't understand.
But you should say that she did or did, whether your ex had psychological issues or not. Were you able to identify any of that?
Well, I believe that she has borderline personality disorder. And I'm fairly sure she has Munchausen by proxy as well.
And is she on medication now by any chance?
No, I don't think so. At least she never says so when she's asked on the stand. So what happened was I filed a motion with the court. I said, please do not let her take the child away from the house. This is usually the other way around. They want to kick the father out and keep the child there for the continuity of residence. But no, they just completely denied me. They said, no, if she wants to take the child away, she can do that. And she promptly did, and to a place that I didn't even know. And so I was even wondering then, what happened to my child? Where did she go? And it was rather systematic. I mean, one thing after another, they took me out of her life. They gave me a little bit more time initially, 8 hours, after like months and months. And then CPS came in, which
Before-
was a whole other saga.
That's an incredible story. I had a chance to look at that clip, and we're going to put that clip, by the way, in this part, so you're going to be able, people are going to be able to see the outrageous CPS workers' comments. I just could not believe it myself. So I'm glad that we're doing this program, and I'm glad the audience is going to have an opportunity to see that, because it was unbelievable. But before we get into that, what else happened with the relationship between you and your daughter?
Well, when my daughter reacted this way because her father had been taken from her, I mean, she just adored me. We were just so close. And she behaved in a way that Suzanne couldn't handle her. Suzanne brought her to the Ulster County Mental Health Department and essentially told a child psychiatrist there that her daughter was seeing things, imaginary people, was acting psychotic.
Was this before the day you said that she was sick, when she came to see you? Before this happened beforehand? Because you had told me about a day that she was sick.
I don't recall.
Okay, well, never mind then, go ahead.
Okay.
I could get this mixed up.
Okay. So she told all these things to the child psychiatrist, the county child psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist did minimal analysis on the child, and then prescribed an antipsychotic medication called Geodon, which is only meant for people 18 and over who have bipolar or psychosis, bona fide psychosis. And in fact, on the label it says, not for children under 18. But she got prescribed this, and it was ostensibly to reduce her anxiety or her boisterousness or how she was acting up. And which is exactly what Suzanne wanted, because my poor daughter was lost and she wanted her daddy. And
so she had some odd behavior, and that may very well have been the reason.
that was the reason, yes.
Okay, yeah.
And then she got drugged up with this medication. She became more zombie-like, more just flat.
Yeah.
When she first started taking it, she used to just look into the distance. And the interesting thing here is, Suzanne did this without telling me at all. Without asking me, without informing me she was doing it, nothing.
Not that it matters very much, but that was before any decision was made? You know, in terms of custody,
There haven't
official
been any
custody?
decision made.
Right,
We'll get to the end
that's
of the
what I wanted to
story.
hear, yeah.
So what happened was, at that time I was getting 8 hours with her, with my daughter, a week. And I noticed all these strange behaviors, and she told me she was having nightmares and couldn't sleep, and strange feelings. And I'm like trying to figure out what on earth could be happening here. And then she started gaining weight. I mean, she was relatively trim, and then she started gaining like a pound a week. And it was just...
She might have been growing.
No, she was not. She was growing sideways. But it was not. It was definitely due to the medication. I mean, it turns out later on it was a side effect of that.
Oh, okay. This, I was looking at your notes here regarding the story with Anya, and you have quite a few things online, but this is a very large story for which I would like to be able to try to narrow down a way for the audience to perceive what you went through. So
if you want me back, you know, I can come back too.
Let's do the CPS run, because I definitely want to hear
Okay, well, I'll tell
in
you.
your terminology how this went. The audience is going to see this on the clip. Go
Sure,
ahead.
sure. What happened before was, because of this medication occurring without me even knowing, I got hints because she told me, Mommy's making me take a pill every day, and it makes me feel awful and funny. And at first I thought it might be sinus medication or something over the counter. And then I realized that that was probably what was causing all her bad effects. So one time she was dancing to some music that we had in my apartment, and then she clutched her heart.
Oh, that's what I was referring to.
Yeah,
That one. Okay.
and she said, "Oh, my heart hurts, ow, ow." And I said, "Okay, well, stop dancing, sit down, relax, and you know, we got to see what's happening." And then she started feeling better, and I said, "Okay, here's some water." And then I said, "You know, I don't know what's happening." She said, "You know, I think it's that pill, Daddy. I think it's that pill. I don't know what it is, but I want to know." And I said, "Well, okay, you know, this is very important. We really have to find out." So I went online at that point, and I was very concerned. We tried to figure out what it was. Couldn't figure it out. All she knew was what it looked like.
And the CPS work, if I remember, because I did see the clip, had a lot to say about
me doing that.
about you doing that at all, which I think is an outrage.
Right. I mean, she was telling me that I had no right to know what medication my daughter was on, and that I should wait for an emergency.
And she also said that she was going to leave it up to the judge, if I remember right, that the judge's decision is going to determine the amount of time you have and access and how that was going to transpire.
That was the threat. Yes, that was the threat.
Yeah.
And she was telling me that I had to wait for an emergency with my daughter, in a medical emergency, before I could do anything about it. She says, well, you know, if you have a problem, bring her to the hospital. And I'm like, well, wouldn't it make more sense for me to know ahead of time what she's taking so I don't accidentally give her another medication that's contraindicated with it or something?
Yeah.
And she was like, no.
About 3 weeks ago, Anya had mentioned to me that Mommy was giving her some kind of pill. And I didn't know whether that was for a headache or for a cold or whatever. So I didn't think too much of it. The week after that, she was dancing in my apartment, just because we had some pretty good disco music on. And she was dancing up and down. And all of a sudden she clutches her heart and says, ow, my heart hurts. I can't dance anymore. And then she sits down and she goes, I'm scared. And at that point I started wondering what this pill could possibly be. And I asked her, I said, well, do you know what color it is? When do they give it to you? What's it supposed to be for? She said, it's supposed to make me cooperate, and it's supposed to relax me. Trying to get any kind of hint because she didn't know the name of it either. So I'm very concerned. I don't know what it is. Suzanne has never told me even that she was medicating her, let alone what it is. I don't know what doctor is giving it to her. And if it is what you're saying it is, I'm freaking out, because this is like Munchausen by proxy. My daughter does not have psychosis.
And you're not aware of the medication that she's on at all?
I don't know what it is.
You weren't told at family court?
No.
My question is, without knowing what the medication was, or speaking to the professional that's providing that medication to her, how do you feel it's appropriate to discuss possible side effects with a child that you are aware of having developmental delays?
When you say I discussed possible side effects,
discuss that with a child A, B, a child that you know has developmental delays, and you don't even know what in fact that medication is. That's your statement to me right now. You don't even know what she's on. You took the time to look it up on the internet, a bunch of different medications, and go over the possible side effects of all these different medications with a child that you know is developmentally delayed, and you felt that was appropriate because why? Why do you feel that that was an appropriate thing to do with a child that you know has developmental delays?
When you're ready,
I'm ready.
Try to answer your question.
I'm ready.
Okay. You've just presented the facts, not how they happened. Okay. I don't know what she was taking. I'm trying to identify what she's taking by her oratory, by what she says she remembers. I am going on the internet. I'm asking her.
Right, we've gotten this side. I understand that part.
Well, let
I've
me
already
put it.
stated that part.
Well, let me put it in my own words.
Those
Okay?
were your words.
Can I put it in my own words?
I want you to move forward.
So you're not letting me put it how I want to put it.
You've already said this.
No, I have not said it.
Fine. Put it in your own words.
Okay, thank you. So I'm looking at these things. I don't know specifically what it is, but I'm also trying to find out what could be given to a child who supposedly has PDD-NOS. And I'm looking and I'm reading some things on Wikipedia. We're looking up, we're trying to find out what it is. And I kept asking her, do you know the name of this thing? She says, no, I don't know the name of this thing. So I perused through the internet on Wikipedia trying to find out what could possibly match up everything I knew about my daughter.
With your daughter present?
Yes, with my daughter present, to see what could possibly be this medication. I don't know what you've been taking. I don't know what it is. And I'm truly at a loss, even at that point. Who do I call? Can't call her doctor. I can't call the school. I can't call her mother because her mother has put restraining orders.
Why do you feel it was appropriate to do this with Anya?
because she's my daughter, and I'm very concerned as to
And
what
how
she
old
might
is
be
Anya?
taking.
How old is Anya?
She's 7.5.
And what does she suffer from?
I don't believe she's suffering
Developmental
from
delays.
anything.
She has developmental delays.
She does not have developmental
Okay.
delays.
It is inappropriate to
She's
discuss
gifted.
this information with your child. Is it inappropriate for you to question your child to this length? I'm telling you that. The judge is going to tell you the same thing. This was inappropriate for you to do with this child.
I'm trying
Period.
to find
Period.
out what the medication
It does not
was.
matter. The judge has determined that you're not eligible to have that information at this point.
The judge never
It's-
said that.
You should make the obvious choice are not things you should be telling your child.
I didn't tell her
You
anything.
told her it could cause this, it could cause that.
I
Your
said
child
I
has
said
now-
I don't know
Your
what it
child
is.
has now related. It could be this, it could be that too.
Did I say
This
that?
is poison. No, we've spoken to your child.
No, did I say it could be this, it could be that?
You did.
What did I say?
You did.
I said I don't know. I keep telling you what I
keep
told her.
saying- And we're going to report this information to the judge.
Well, you
need
should,
to stop
because I'm
questioning her,
concerned.
period.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think it was her mother's responsibility to at least let me know?
No.
No.
Her mother does not have a court order that says she has to share any of that information with you. You don't have overnight visits. You're not responsible for giving her any of the medication.
My daughter
It is not your wife's,
is going.
ex-wife's responsibility.
My daughter is
to
with
give
me
her
for an
information.
extended period of time on Sundays. Whatever this medication is might have side effects.
No.
It might have contraindications for other
And
medications.
then you would take her to the hospital, and the hospital would call her mother, because her mother is the legal custodian that has to consent to any medical care she would receive.
So you
That's what
don't
you're
think it
doing.
was irresponsible for
No,
her
I do
mother not to tell me
No, I do
what
not.
medicine she's taking?
No, I do not.
Let me ask you a quick question. If a person were to bring their child to, say, a daycare center for 8 hours,
Mhm.
don't you think it's incumbent upon them to tell the daycare center what medications that child might be on?
No.
Not at all.
And she goes on to say that we could be giving her birth control pills for all it matters. Makes no difference. You're not entitled to know these things.
Yeah.
And that's untrue. It was
Yeah.
just untrue.
It's a crazy system we have, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so where are you, and what's your next
Well,
place to be?
so
with this
when
whole
you're going to
thing?
show this video, but basically that was their first salvo at me. And they charged me with everything that was not neglect or abuse or anything. They charged me with bringing my kid to McDonald's, looking up this medication on the internet, letting her weigh herself on a bathroom scale, drinking soda. You know, none of these things are neglect. None of these things are abuse. And so, yeah, I said, yeah, I did these things. There was no controversy. You know, you don't even have to go to trial for something like that.
Yeah, really, huh?
Yeah, I did all these things, but that's what every parent does.
I also breathed while I was doing these
Yeah,
things.
exactly. And so, I don't know, it was more procedure than substance. You know, they wanted to get me into their own little movie. They even brought me to McDonald's as one of our visiting locations. You know, this is one of the reasons why they did this to me, and say you couldn't bring her to McDonald's. Then later on, they brought us to McDonald's as a visit location and where we would have food. So it's completely hypocritical and obviously had nothing to do with the substance. They just wanted me and my daughter in their system. And I believe they make money on every case they bring in. So they had a financial incentive as well.
Yeah, there's some justification going on along there.
But I truly believe this, though. This came right after I had called them. I was told by them I have to call them if I see anything happen with my daughter or if I believe that her mother did anything wrong. And usually I don't like calling people on anybody else, but they said if I didn't do that, then I would be in trouble. So I found out through my daughter's relaying to me and a neighbor of hers that Suzanne had left her in the apartment alone, and she had left.
And how old was she at that time?
7.5.
Okay.
And my daughter left the apartment, I guess, to go out and check something, and the door locked behind her. And then she went out into the parking lot, and that door locked out behind her. So there she was in the parking lot of this apartment complex next to a highway, and she couldn't get back in, and she started crying. And fortunately, a neighbor came by and helped her and accompanied her until her mother came back. So I heard about this, and I said, well, okay, and then I called CPS. Well, they said they investigated it. They said there was nothing wrong here. What I did supposedly was enough to launch a case against me, but that was nothing wrong.
Yeah. Nothing against them, just
No.
about you, yeah.
A week
you picked up
after-
the phone again.
Exactly. A week after I did this, and they told me, by the way, we investigated, we found nothing particularly wrong. Oh, but by the way, we're investigating you now. And I said, for what? And then when you're going to see this video, you'll find out for what. And it was like retaliation from CPS for me calling on the mom. A week later, they retaliated against me. Like, how could you call on the mom? How could you do this? Oh, we'll show you what happens if you mess with CPS.
Yeah, really.
You know, it's like the Spanish Inquisition.
Yeah.
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
The pointy cushions will follow.
Exactly.
Parental alienation is definitely CPS oriented here.
Well, they aided and abetted
Yeah.
and totally enabled. I mean, Suzanne on her own, she couldn't do this, but CPS and the courts, they say, no, you cannot see your child. And then later, when I could see my child, they said, no, we're not going to issue a visitation order telling Suzanne to let me see my kid. And Suzanne said very clearly, I do not want her father in her life. I do not want him or her to see each other ever again. She said this on the stand.
Yeah.
And you would think that this would somehow move the judge and say, well, you know, that's not right.
Isn't it a little too far that you say that?
Yeah. And we have asked this judge 13 times for one simple visitation order so that I can see my child. And the judge refuses each and every time, without any substance, without any findings. He just says, well, I just want to hear some more about it on the case. And he said that 13 times.
When you walk into a courtroom, we used to think, and of course I used to be naive too, that the scales of justice were
You
going to
would think.
provide an opportunity for us to have our day in court, so to speak.
You would think. I got so desperate, I filed a what they call a habeas corpus for production of the child. There's actually a state statute in New York for production of the child. And when I went through with that, would you believe it? The same judge pops up in this other court, right? Purely accidental, I'm
Wow.
sure. No, it wasn't accidental. It's supposed to be random selection of judges, but he got himself on.
What did you call that habeas corpus? What kind of habeas corpus?
DRL subsection 70. It's called habeas corpus for production of the child held by a parent.
Production, okay.
Yeah. And so when we finally got to the hearing, a 5-minute hearing, this judge says, I have this handled in the family court case, and this is superfluous, and the relief you're asking for here is redundant, and the case is dismissed. You know, and I was desperate. I'm trying to get a visitation with my child.
At that point, how long had it been since you've seen her?
At that point, about 8 months. There was an 8-month period of time when I did not see her at all.
7-year-old, that's a long time.
I know. Now get this, another Kafkaesque aspect. While I was being charged by CPS until they resolved that I did nothing wrong, I got to see my child once a week for an hour, okay? When they said, okay, you're right, we're wrong, you did nothing wrong, we're dropping the case against you, and they did. What happens? I didn't see my daughter at all. All right. So only while I was being charged by CPS, even they have their lowest common denominator standards of letting the
Lowest
child
threshold,
see.
you mean,
That's
right?
right.
Yeah.
Let the child see the father at least once a week. You
Right.
know? Then the authority went back to my ex, and she said, no. No seeing, no nothing, no visitation. You don't get to see the kid.
If I didn't see it myself with my own eyes when I court watched, that a judge would ask the other participant in the room for their permission to either jail or not jail, or to have custody or not have custody, to get access or not have access, I wouldn't have believed it. What do we need a judge for?
Exactly. Exactly. It was like a campaign. It was just one after another. You would think that you would get better and better. No. It was like thud, and they'd say, okay, I'm working my way up, and then thud, 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 until the point where I virtually do not have a daughter anymore, and she has no father.
When was the last time you saw her in this period? You have access now?
I have now, they charge me an arm and a leg, $150 for 40 minutes to see my daughter once every 2 months. That's as much as I see her now.
Once every 2 months.
Yeah, while somebody's there watching us.
Oh, supervised visitation?
Well, no, they call it, it's therapeutic visitation.
We
Virtually
call-
the same
We
thing.
call it parenting in a box.
Yes, you have to be like a cutout caricature of yourself.
Yeah.
You can't really talk to your kid. You can't talk to your child. You have to be all smiles, and you can't talk about your past. You can't talk about your future. You have to just basically not say anything.
Probably can't whisper, or probably can't
No, you
tell
can't
anything
whisper.
like
You can't
that,
give
yeah.
gifts. You can't do anything. You just have to smile like a mannequin.
And look paralyzed.
Well, no. If you look paralyzed, then you
Oh,
might be
you might be
hurting.
in drugs or something like that.
No, no, no. If you look paralyzed, then you might be emotionally harming the child,
Yeah.
who will wonder, why are you looking like that, Daddy? Why are you not acting normal? And so you have to do this dance. It's like on a
Oh, yeah.
tightrope
Oh, yeah, I know.
of acting as nice, as normal as you can without any substance to it.
Where are you now with the case? Are we done?
No, the case started. This is the second round of custody trials. The first round ended with everybody pulling their petitions,
Yeah.
and
Good for you for staying with it, by the way.
oh yeah, and that happened in November of 2012. Everybody pulled their petitions. We were on the cusp of a trial. The judge was there, and we're sort of all ready to go. And the judge says, "Well, are you ready?" And I said, "Yes." They said, "Listen, we have an offer. Let's just pull all our petitions because it's too complicated right now." All right, so they pulled all the petitions. Then in July 2013,
That could have been a cover-up, you know.
I don't know what it was.
I mean, I'm just saying, you know.
I mean, I was ready. I don't know if I was ready as I wanted to be. I felt I needed more time.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I got kind of like on the fence on it. But I was much more ready the next time around. And in July of 2013, the custody case started up for real. The problem is they have these huge time periods between trial dates.
Right.
And when I say huge, I mean like months and months. And all this time without a visitation order
Right.
is like a desolate
Sure, sure.
time. I do not see my kid.
Empty space uncovered, no
Yeah.
information coming in, none going out, lost time with the child, and
Precisely.
probably a financial obligation
Very,
in between.
very difficult. Mostly I don't see my kid, and that's the worst thing.
Yeah.
So what happened then is we actually did get to have a number of trial dates. Up to that point, she had her 8 days of trial, and I'm still in the process of finishing up my trial. And I'm looking at around 16 days of actual trial dates because I have so many expert witnesses.
If you don't mind, don't have to answer this question if you don't want to, but what cost financial has it hit you during this period?
Well, no, it has not, because I refuse to go bankrupt in this process. I do have a little bit of legal experience in my background. I took paralegal courses, and I've done civil rights cases and whatnot. And I said, well, how much more complicated can a family court case be than the litigation that I have handled before?
It's
And
very simple. You walk in, you lose.
just about it. It's not really more complicated, but there's so much unwritten rules.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe 80% of what goes on in family court is not written down. So it's just like policy, unwritten policy. It is.
Well, the DRLs is that thick now. I mean, they have lots and lots of law, but I don't know what applies and what
The
doesn't
law
apply.
is okay, but what they do is they break the law.
Yeah.
For example, this whole thing about custody duration.
last minute's okay.
I will.
Yeah.
This whole thing about custody duration, there is a mandatory law in family court law. It says no custody trial is to go beyond 90 days. From beginning to end. 90 days maximum, mandatory.
I didn't know that. What's this?
It's 214.15, New York NYCRR
It's
22.
DRL 214.15, or is that?
NYCRR 22.
Okay.
It's Title 22.
Okay.
And it's yeah, it's 214.15.
Well, we'll look it up. I'll look it
yeah.
up.
And
if
it's
we have-
mandatory. But they do it.
I mean,
They
I
break
don't
the
know any
rule.
trial in custody that took less.
I know.
And meanwhile,
And
they're
they
all
just
supposed
break
to,
that
I don't
rule.
know, it's crazy.
And they don't give visitation.
Gary, thank you very much. I hope you have your access to your child back for you as soon as possible.
Oh, I hope so too.
No, that's the one. That's
I'm
the one,
really
guys.
trying so
So
hard.
silent political trends are rapidly breaking down the family that once was the cornerstone of our great American culture. At FIT, we know you cannot get this information on your own, so we'll bring it to you TV every single week. We always invite all opposing views. My name is Chris DiMaggio. Thank you very much for watching FIT TV, and we'll see you again next week.